McDonald.
Yesterday I raised with you again the importance of government securing public ownership of the site on which the new National Maternity Hospital will be built. I also expressed my astonishment that neither you nor the Minister for Health had made any substantial effort to convince the St Vincent's Health Group to transfer that land to the state. And furthermore, I propose that you, the Taoiseach and Minister Donnelly should meet urgently with the board of that group to negotiate such a transfer. This clean, clear transaction would be the very best outcome, as it would ensure that we have a public maternity hospital built on public land. And that's what the Sinn Fein motion to be voted on by the Dáil tonight calls for. You've stated that government won't oppose this motion. So can I take it that the government's position is to secure the state ownership of the land, and that you will now engage in that high-level negotiation with St Vincent's Health Group to achieve this? Because, Taoiseach, that will be the position of the Dáil after tonight's vote, and the government should act on their instruction. The public want clarity, Taoiseach, but the truth is that your government has sown confusion, distrust and unease about your plan. We've had 2 weeks of a consultation that wasn't really a consultation at all. You said that you were open to changes, to suggestions, but you ignored and pushed back all suggestions and went ahead with your original deal. And you and Minister Donnelly say you engaged with St Vincent's Health Group to secure state ownership of the land. St Vincent said you didn't. You responded by saying that you did. This evening's motion articulates a clear call for public ownership of the site, and it is now clear that government will in effect support that motion. So let's get the clarity that people want. State ownership of the site is the best way to safeguard an investment of almost €1 billion of taxpayers' money. It is also the very best way to end conclusively any fear of residual religious dogma compromising the delivery of health services for women. And I do not have to rehearse with you again the harrowing history that gives rise to such anxieties. Taoiseach, everybody in this Dáil and beyond wants the new hospital built. We want and we need a new era in maternity care for women here in Ireland. And I believe we should all accept and acknowledge each other's bona fides in that regard. But we have to get this right. We have to get the best deal and the best arrangement to achieve that ambition. Taoiseach, beceart an rialtas an rud ceart a dhéanamh inis. Beceart dit dul I deagháil a grúpa sláinte néamh ansin chun an siamh seo a fáil faoi únaireacht an stáit. Sinn Fein, Taoiseach, the Sinn Fein motion this evening presents us with an opportunity for everyone to vote for the best approach. Given that you are not opposing the motion, will you now commit to leading government in an engagement with St Vincent's Healthcare Group to secure this site in state ownership?
Well, first of all, Deputy, what I consider, and this has been an interesting debate, and what has struck me is the attempts to sort of reverse the truth, or to sort of rename the truth, and make a declaration which you've been consistently making, hoping it becomes the truth, and develop a new truism, i.e. That 300 years of a lease at €10 a year is somehow not ownership. It is ownership. It is public ownership. And that is, you know, you're endeavouring to create the premise somehow that it's not full ownership. It is. And most sensible people dealing in this area historically, and that came out in the committee, by the way, all the legal people who would have experience in the area of leasing and conveyancing and so on, all accept that 300 years at €10 a year is ownership. So you've created this kind of false idea that there is some dramatic difference between 300 years of a lease for 10 euros a year and full outright ownership of the site. It's a very false, in my view. And you've asked that we all accept each other's bona fides. I do, although you then say that we're deliberately sowing confusion and doubt and all that, which we're not. Because this deal represents a strengthening of the deal that was agreed through the mediation of Kieran Mulvey, in 2017. This actually enhances, because what we did seek was a strengthening of the lease, an extension of the lease, which was 99 years with an option of 50 originally in the aftermath of the Mulvey deal, which is now 300 years. So there is no issue with ownership. That's the first point I would make. And the state's interest is guaranteed. And there is value for money in that. No matter how long we think a hospital will last, I think it's safe enough to say if it has a lifespan of 300 years, it'll be some hospital in terms of how it's going to get built. But so I want to nail this one. This idea, and there's a lot of fog and confusion has been created around this, in my view too, and it doesn't hold water. And it hasn't held up to a robust argument at committee or throughout the last 2 weeks. The other key issue and a range of issues that were raised related to what services would be provided in the new hospital. Would there be any religious ethos influencing the provision of such services? And again, there are cast iron, watertight guarantees contained in the new hospital's constitution, in the operating licence from the HSE to the new hospital, in the minister's golden share, which empowers the minister to direct the directors of the new hospital to make sure that all legally permissible services are provided, and they must legally comply. They must legally comply. Those were legitimate concerns that had been raised last year and in previous times in terms of would there be any potential undermining of the provision of such services through some religious influence or other. And there are cast iron legal guarantees provided, watertight guarantees provided in that respect, multi-layered in terms of the various documents that underpin both the constitution of the hospital, the operating licence, and the activities. But the most powerful voice of all has been the voice of women involved in maternity care in this country. The national directors of midwifery across the length and breadth of the country has pleaded with government to get this hospital built. The director of midwifery at Holles Street and the assisting directors of midwifery have all pleaded with the government to get this hospital built. And the clinicians at Holles Street have all asked that we would now take this decision to build the new hospital. Because in 2013 it was agreed, or was decided to build this hospital. It's now 2022.
Thank you, Taoiseach.
Right? So genuinely, we do need to commence the construction phase of this hospital, given all of the guarantees that are in place.
Indeed it is, and that's 9 long years, and you know, for a very, very long time, women in midwifery, indeed all concerned in obstetrics and the care, the provision of services for women, have been calling for proper investment in our maternity services and health services for women. So there's no great surprise in that. And we all share that ambition, and the hospital has to get built. You see, the only fog and confusion is fog and confusion generated by yourself. And I asked you a question. We have a motion coming before the Dáil this evening. The motion is crystal clear. It sets out very clearly a call from the Dáil, from the Oireachtas, for full public ownership of the land. And by that I mean, to be clear, a clean transfer of ownership in perpetuity to the state of that site. Now, I understand that you will support that motion, or at least you do not propose to vote against it. So therefore, I can only surmise that you accept that the best outcome is full ownership in that manner. And I'm asking you, Taoiseach, given that you will support the motion, or at least you don't oppose the motion, will you act on the will of the Dáil, and will you engage with St Vincent's Health Group to secure the ambition of that motion and the expressed will of the Dáil?
Taoiseach to respond.
We have secured public ownership of the hospital.
So why
That's
are you...
the point. And also, I understand the politics of the motion. I've been around now for a bit to understand private members' motions, the motivation behind them, the need to keep government under pressure. I understand that fully. So, we will deal with the motion in the manner, in the manner that we see fit as a government, and just as you equally will put forward motions with a very clear political agenda behind them. So we're not. We didn't all come down the last cloud, So I'm fully comfortable with what's happening this evening in respect of private members' motion in relation to this. The more important point is that the fundamental issue of ownership has been dealt with. In terms of the 300-year, with the greatest respect, Deputy, when I spoke to you before the formation of government, your main request is that we'd last 5 years and make no attention to undermine it in any shape or form. So I'm not in any way now.
The biggest thing that upsets you now is that you know I'm right. You're a laughing stock. You won't support your own stance tonight inside the Dáil.
I'm not worried about your faux bravado at all. I know where your bread is buttered in the end of the day when it comes to the longevity and lifespan of this particular time. The more important point is the ownership issue has been dealt with and the guarantees are there. Thanks.